My name is Paige Dawson. I'm 31. Last Friday, my dad sat me down at the kitchen table and told me I owed $300,000, or I was no longer his daughter. He said it was my sister's debt, that I had to cover it because family takes care of family. I looked at my father, then at my mother, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and I said, "Then I'm not." I drove 2 hours home that night, and when I called my bank, what I found wasn't just a number on a screen. It was 3 years of lies signed in my name by the people who raised me. 7 days later, my entire family showed up at my door. I opened it and said 2 words. Before I take you back to that Friday night, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to 3 weeks ago, the night my father called a family meeting. The drive from Columbus to Millfield takes 2 hours if traffic cooperates. That Friday, it didn't, so I had plenty of time to wonder why my father had used the word urgent on the phone. Gerald Dawson doesn't use that word for holidays, birthdays, or hospital visits. He saves it for the hardware store. Dawson and Sons Hardware sits on the ground floor of my parents' house, a brick building on Main Street that my father has run for 32 years. There's no son. There never was. Just me and Brielle, my younger sister. The sign was aspirational, Dad said once. I stopped asking about it after that. Growing up, the division was clean. I got responsibility. Brielle got protection. I worked the register from 16, paid my own tuition at Ohio State, graduated summa cum laude in accounting. Brielle got her tuition covered, a car for her 21st birthday, and seed money for an online boutique that sold overpriced candles and scarves. When the boutique didn't turn a profit the first year, Dad refinanced something, I never knew what, and gave her more. I didn't resent it. I told myself that's just how families work. Some kids get the safety net, some kids become the safety net. I was proud of what I'd built on my own, a senior accountant position at a mid-size firm in Columbus, a savings account I never touched, and a down payment sitting in escrow for my first house. A 2-bedroom in Westerville with a backyard just big enough for a garden. I parked behind the store at 7:15. The lights upstairs were on. Brielle's car wasn't in the lot. Dad met me at the door. No hug. "Your sister's running late. Come sit down." The kitchen table was cleared. No plates, no food, just Dad and Mom, sitting across from each other like it was an interview. Something was wrong. Dad didn't ease into it. He never does. "Brielle's in trouble," he said. "The boutique, the expansion loan, all of it. She owes $300,000. I set my keys on the table. 300,000. I did the math without thinking. Occupational hazard. That's roughly 6 years of my gross salary, nearly every dollar I'd saved since college. "That's a lot of debt," I said. "What's the plan?" Dad leaned forward. His hands were flat on the table, fingers spread, the way he stands behind the counter when he's about to quote a price he won't negotiate. "You're paying it," he said, "or you're no longer our child." The kitchen went quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Mom stared at her hands in her lap, turning her wedding ring like a dial she couldn't find the right setting for. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you can," Dad said. "She can't. I've been saving for a house. A house can wait, family can't." I looked at Mom. "Do you agree with this?" She didn't look up. "Your father knows what's best." There it was. Not a request. Not a discussion. A verdict delivered at the kitchen table in the same voice he used to tell suppliers their invoices were wrong. I was the supplier now, and the invoice was my entire financial future. I stood up. My chair didn't scrape. I lifted it back the way I'd been taught. Even in that moment, I was polite. Even in that moment, I was the dependable one. "Then I'm not," I said. Dad blinked. "Not what?" "Your child. If that's the condition, then I'm not." I picked up my keys. Mom finally looked up, but I was already walking to the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I drove back to Columbus in the dark. Somewhere around mile 80, the numbers started bothering me. 300,000. Dad said it like he'd rehearsed it. Not around 300, or a few 100,000. A precise number. Gerald Dawson doesn't guess at figures. He knows them. which meant he hadn't just heard about Brielle's debt. He'd been looking at it, studying it, long enough to memorize the total. By the time I unlocked my apartment in Columbus, it was almost 10. I checked my bank accounts first. Checking, savings, the escrow fund for the house. Everything looked normal. But something nagged. 3 weeks ago, my mortgage application had been denied. The loan officer said there were discrepancies in my credit profile and suggested I review my report. I'd assumed it was an error. Banks make mistakes. Systems glitch. I'd planned to follow up Monday. Now it was Friday night, and my father had just quoted a six-figure number at me like it was an invoice I'd already agreed to. I pulled my credit report from Equifax. Free, annual, takes 4 minutes. My credit score was 480. I read it again. 480. There were 4 credit cards I had never opened. An auto loan for $45,000 on a vehicle I had never driven. 2 personal loans totaling $120,000 from lenders I had never contacted. Every account was delinquent, some by 6 months, some by over a year. Late fees, collection notices, liens. The name on every account was mine. The Social Security number was mine. The addresses were not. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the screen until the numbers stopped looking like numbers and started looking like a crime. Because that's what this was. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. The addresses weren't mine. But I recognized the zip code. It was Millfield. I didn't sleep that night. I pulled reports from all 3 bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. The details varied slightly between them, but the shape of the damage was identical. Total debt under my name, $312,000. 4 credit cards with combined limits of $67,000. An auto loan, $45,000, for a BMW X3 registered in Ohio. 2 personal loans from online lenders, one for $70,000, another for $50,000. A store credit line for $22,000 at a furnishing company I'd never heard of. Interest charges, penalty fees, collection accounts. The mailing address on every single account was a P.O. box in Millfield, Ohio. Not my apartment in Columbus. Not any address I'd ever used. A P.O. box. Someone had set it up specifically to intercept the paperwork. I'm a senior accountant. I review financial documents for a living. I recognize fraud when I see it, in spreadsheets, in receipts, in journal entries that don't match. But I'd never thought to look at my own credit report the way I look at a client's ledger. I'd trusted the one institution I never audited, my family. Someone had used my Social Security number to open accounts. Someone had forged my signature on applications. Someone had redirected my mail so I'd never see a single statement or collection letter. For 3 years, $312,000. That was almost exactly the number my father had quoted at dinner. The number he told me was Brielle's debt that I needed to pay. He wasn't asking me to bail out my sister. He was asking me to quietly absorb a debt that already existed under my name, a debt he helped create. I said it out loud for the first time, alone in my apartment at 2 a.m. My parents stole my identity. 3 months ago, I found the house. A 2-bedroom in Westerville, white siding, blue shutters, a backyard with a maple tree that would turn gold in October. I put down $15,000, everything from a savings account I'd fed since I was 23, 8 years of packing lunches, skipping vacations, driving a car with 200,000 miles on it. The mortgage officer at the bank had smiled when she reviewed my income. "This should be straightforward," she said. 2 weeks later, she called back. Denied. Something about credit irregularities. She recommended I check my report and reapply. I'd assumed it was a hiccup, a transposed number, a duplicate entry. I told myself I'd handle it after the holidays. Now I knew what the irregularity was. A credit score of 480 means no one lends you money. Not for a house, not for a car, not for a business. To any lender in America, I looked like someone who borrows recklessly and never pays back. My 8 years of discipline, my perfect payment history on my actual accounts, none of it mattered. The fraud had buried everything. And if I did nothing, the debt would keep accruing. The collection agencies would keep calling, not at the P.O. box in Millfield, but eventually at my real address, my workplace. I could be sued by creditors for debts I never incurred. My wages could be garnished. My career as an accountant, a profession built entirely on financial trustworthiness, would be over. I called Nora at 2 in the morning. She picked up on the second ring because that's the kind of friend she is. I told her everything, the dinner, the number, the credit reports. She was quiet for 10 seconds. Nora is never quiet for 10 seconds. Paige, you need a lawyer. Tonight. Nora works in forensic accounting, the kind of work where you untangle money trails for a living. 2 years ago, she'd consulted on a case involving a client whose ex-husband had opened credit lines in her name during their divorce. The attorney who handled it was named Russell Kemp, and according to Nora, he was the best identity theft litigator in Central Ohio. He's not cheap, Nora said, but he's thorough. I emailed Russell Kemp at 3:17 in the morning. I attached screenshots of all 3 credit reports, the denied mortgage letter, and a summary of what my father had said at dinner. I wrote it the way I'd write a memo at work. Chronological, factual, no editorializing. Russell replied at 6:42 a.m., 4 sentences. Ms. Dawson, I've reviewed the attachments. This appears to be a clear case of familial identity theft involving mail fraud and forged applications. Do not contact your family. Do not confront them. We need documentation before anything else. Do not contact your family. The sentence sat on my screen like a wall I couldn't see past. These weren't strangers. This was the woman who drove me to my first day of school, the man who taught me to balance a checkbook. But Russell was right. I'd spent my whole career examining other people's financial misconduct, following evidence trails, flagging discrepancies, building cases that held up under scrutiny. Now I had to do the same thing, except the case was my own life, and the suspects were the people who raised me. I wrote back. Understood. What do I need to do first? He replied in 30 seconds. Check your USPS mail forwarding history. If someone rerouted your mail without authorization, that's a federal offense. That changes everything. I opened a new browser tab. My hands were steady. My chest was not. Saturday morning, 7 a.m. My phone rang. Dad. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Russell had said, don't confront. He hadn't said, don't listen, so I picked up. You made your mother cry all night. His opening line, no hello. I'm sorry she's upset. She's not upset. She's heartbroken. Her own daughter walked out. I didn't walk out. I said no. Same thing in this family. I let that sit. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear the cash register downstairs. Saturday mornings, the store opens at 7. Even in crisis, Gerald Dawson opens on time. Dad, we need to talk about the money. That's what I tried to do last night. No, we need to talk about where it actually came from. A pause. 3 seconds. 4. Family takes care of family, Paige. Family doesn't steal from family either. 5 seconds now. I counted them. Nobody stole anything, he said. His voice dropped half a register, the way it does when he's choosing words carefully. We borrowed. You don't borrow what you never asked for. We were going to pay it back, once the store turned around. The store hasn't turned around in 6 years, Dad. He didn't deny it. He didn't explain. He shifted. If you do something stupid, you'll tear this family apart. Something stupid like calling my bank? Dead silence. No sharp inhale. No scramble for excuses. Just silence. The kind that tells you the other person already knew you'd find out. He just hadn't expected it this fast. We'll talk about this as a family, he said. We'll talk about it with my lawyer. He hung up. I set the phone down and noticed something. He hadn't denied anything, not once. He'd only tried to reframe it. Mom called at 4 that afternoon. She'd been crying, or she wanted me to think she had. With Donna Dawson, those two things aren't always different. Your father has high blood pressure, she said. You know that. This stress could put him in the hospital. I understand. Then come home. We'll sit down, all 4 of us, and figure this out. Mom, I need to ask you something. Anything, sweetheart. Did you sign my name on those loan applications? The line went so quiet I checked to make sure we were still connected. 4 seconds. 5. 6. Then she spoke, but not to answer. Brielle is falling apart. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She needs her sister. Mom, I asked you a direct question. Everything I've ever done was for this family. You have to understand that. I do understand it. That's the problem. Your father said it would be temporary, just until the store. Did you sign my name, yes or no? Her breath hitched. I did it to keep this family together. There it was. Not a denial. Not even a deflection anymore. A confession dressed up as sacrifice. She said I did it to keep this family together, the way someone says I had no choice. As if love and fraud could share the same sentence and cancel each other out. I let the silence hold. I wanted her to hear herself. If you go to the police, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, you'll destroy this family. I pressed my palm against the kitchen counter. Mom, I didn't destroy anything. I just found out what you built. She hung up first this time, and I stood in my kitchen knowing two things with absolute certainty. My mother had forged my signature, and she'd do it again if no one stopped her. Brielle texted Sunday morning. A long message, the kind that scrolls past two screens and starts with, I need you to know. I had no idea they used your name. I swear on everything. I'm so sorry. Please don't punish me for what Mom and Dad did. I'm your sister. I love you. Part of me wanted to believe her. Brielle has always been good at sincerity. She cries at commercials. She sends handwritten thank you cards. She once drove 40 minutes to bring me soup when I had the flu. Whatever else she is, she's warm. That warmth makes it hard to look at her clearly. But Russell had already sent me something that made it impossible to look away. The auto loan, the $45,000 one for a BMW X3, had a delivery address. Not the P.O. box. Not our parents' house. Brielle's apartment in Athens, Ohio. The car was registered to my name, insured under my social security number, and parked in Brielle's garage. She'd been driving it for 2 years. My name was on the title. My credit was wrecked by the payments she never made. I didn't reply to her text. Instead, I logged into the USPS informed delivery portal. Russell had told me to check for unauthorized mail forwarding. It took 10 minutes and a verification code. There it was. A change of address request filed 3 years ago. All mail addressed to Paige Dawson at my parents' home in Millfield. Forwarded to P.O. Box 1174, Millfield, OH 45764. The request was signed, Paige Dawson. I compared the signature on the USPS form to my actual signature on my driver's license renewal. The slant was close. The spacing was off. The D in Dawson curled the wrong direction. A small thing, but unmistakable if you know what to look for. Someone had practiced. Someone had gotten close. But not close enough. Monday morning. Russell's office was on the 3rd floor of a building near the Franklin County Courthouse. Clean, organized, no family photos on the desk. He laid out the documents like a surgeon arranging instruments. Credit reports from all 3 bureaus, the USPS mail forwarding record. Printouts of the loan applications he'd requested from each lender. My real signature on file with the Ohio BMV for comparison. Mail fraud is federal, Russell said. He spoke the way he probably spoke in depositions, measured, unhurried, every word carrying weight. Identity theft is federal. Forged signatures on loan applications. That's bank fraud. We're not talking about small claims court, Ms. Dawson. What are my options? He tapped the stack of applications. Option 1. You file an identity theft report with the FTC, freeze your credit with all 3 bureaus, and submit a complaint to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Each creditor opens an investigation. Fraudulent accounts get flagged and eventually removed. Your credit begins to recover. And option 2? You do nothing. You absorb $312,000 in debt someone else created under your name. You lose the house. You lose your financial standing. And in 12 to 18 months, when the creditors start garnishing wages, you lose your career. I stared at the loan applications. 6 documents, 6 forged signatures, each one a little better than the last, as if the person signing had been practicing, learning, getting comfortable writing my name on a line I'd never seen. Russell, I want to give them one chance. 7 days. He studied me. One chance to do what? Come clean. Cooperate. Work out a repayment plan with you. He nodded slowly. 7 days. Then we file everything. I agreed. 7 days felt like a mercy. It also felt like enough rope. I'm sitting in a lawyer's office, looking at 3 years of forged signatures with my name on them. 3 years. And I had no idea. Right now, I need you to do something. If you've ever trusted someone who didn't deserve it, hit that like button. And if you want to see what happens when my family shows up at my door 7 days from now, subscribe. Because that moment is coming, and it's not what they expected. That night, I dug through the filing cabinet in my apartment closet. I keep every document that matters: tax returns, lease agreements, insurance policies. Nora calls it paranoid. I call it professional habit. Halfway through the second drawer, I found it. A proxy authorization form I'd signed 2 years ago. Mom had asked me to sign it before a work trip to Denver. Just in case a package comes and I need to sign for it, she'd said. It seemed reasonable. Daughters sign things for their mothers. It's not unusual. The form had my full legal signature: first name, middle initial, last name, the slight upward slant I've had since high school. I held it next to the printout of one of the fraudulent loan applications. The similarities were obvious. The forger had captured the general shape, the way my capital P leans slightly left, the loop on the G. But there were differences, too. The spacing between letters was tighter on the forgeries. The crossbar on the T sat lower. And the D in Dawson, my D makes a clean vertical stroke before the curve. The forged D started with the curve, a mirror image habit that belongs to someone who writes the letter differently in their own name. Someone had used my proxy form as a reference sheet, a template. They'd studied my handwriting the way you'd study a font, close enough to pass a glance, not close enough to survive comparison. Mom had asked me to sign that form. Mom had kept it. And Mom, according to what she'd admitted on the phone, was the one who signed the loan applications. She'd practiced my signature. She'd gotten good at it, but not perfect. I photographed both documents side by side and emailed them to Russell with one line: same hand, different person. Russell called Tuesday afternoon with the P.O. box confirmation. He'd filed a records request with the Millfield Post Office. P.O. Box 1174 is registered to Donna Dawson, he said. Opened 3 years ago, 1 month after you moved to Columbus. 1 month. I'd barely finished unpacking my apartment when my mother walked into a post office and redirected my mail. While I was setting up my new life, she was quietly rerouting the evidence of everything they were about to do. Every billing statement, I said, half to myself. Every late notice, every collection letter. All of it went to that box, for 3 years. I leaned back in my desk chair at work. Nora was across the aisle, pretending not to listen while reviewing a client file. Russell, if I never got a single piece of mail about these accounts, how would I have ever known? You wouldn't have. That's the point. This was designed to stay invisible until the debt became unmanageable. Then they'd need you to take responsibility for it, which is exactly what happened Friday night. I thought about Mom's birthday cards. Every year without fail. A handwritten card in a lavender envelope, my name in her careful cursive on the front. A Hallmark sentiment inside with "Love, Mom" at the bottom. She never missed a year. She always wrote the address by hand because she said printed labels were impersonal. The same hand that wrote "Happy Birthday, Sweetheart" on the envelope also signed Paige Dawson on a loan application for $70,000. She signed my birthday cards with love. She signed my loan papers with the same hand. I told Russell I wanted to send the message to my father that night. The 7-day clock would start at midnight. After 7 days, Russell said, we file everything. No extensions. I sent the text at 11:58 p.m. Tuesday. Short, clear, no emotion. Dad, I know what happened. All of it. The accounts, the signatures, the P.O. box. I'm giving you and Mom 7 days to come to me, tell the truth, and work with my lawyer on a repayment plan. After that, I file with every agency that applies. I watched the screen. Delivered. Read at 12:03 a.m. No reply. Wednesday morning. Day 1. Nothing from Dad. Mom texted at 9. Please don't do this to your father. He hasn't slept. I didn't respond. Brielle texted at noon. This is so unfair to me. I didn't ask for any of this. I read it twice. She didn't ask for it. She just drove it, wore it, furnished her apartment with it. But she didn't ask. I put my phone in the desk drawer at work and didn't check it until 5. 14 missed messages. I read the names. Mom, Brielle, Mom again. A number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Aunt Colleen's landline. I answered none of them. That evening I sat on my couch with the TV off and counted the hours. Russell had the documents ready: the FTC identity theft report, the credit freeze applications for all 3 bureaus, the IC3 complaint for the FBI, and the police report template for Columbus PD. Everything was drafted, reviewed, and waiting for my signature. My real signature. 7 days. I'd given them 7 days to do the right thing, 7 days to show me that the people who raised me could own what they'd done. It was the longest I'd ever waited for anything. Day 1 passed. Nobody came clean. On day 2, something worse happened. Aunt Colleen called Thursday morning, day 2, while I was reviewing a quarterly report at my desk. Her voice had that specific pitch it gets when she's been appointed spokesperson for a family grievance. "Your father told us everything," she said. "I don't understand how you could do this, Paige. Threaten your own parents with lawyers?" I set my pen down. "What exactly did he tell you?" "That Brielle is in financial trouble, and you refused to help. And now you've hired some attorney to intimidate the family." There it was. Gerald's version. Edited, rearranged, stripped of every detail that mattered. In his telling, I was the villain. The ungrateful daughter who could help but chose not to, and then weaponized the legal system against her own blood. "Aunt Colleen, that's not what happened." "Then explain it to me." Russell's voice echoed in my head. "Don't share evidence with anyone except law enforcement." "I can't go into the details right now, but I promise you, there's more to this story." There's always more to the story with your generation. You know what your grandparents would have said? You take care of your own. "I am taking care of my own, Aunt Colleen. That's the part Dad didn't mention," she huffed. "After everything Gerald and Donna have done for you, the sacrifices they made." I could have listed the things they'd done to me instead of for me. I could have read her the credit report line by line. But Russell was right. Any information I shared now could compromise the case later, so I swallowed it. "I hope you'll give me the benefit of the doubt until you have the full picture," I said. "I know the full picture," she said. "Your father's a good man." She hung up, and Gerald's preemptive strike landed exactly where he'd aimed it. Day 3, Friday. Gerald created a group text. The message thread appeared on my phone at 8 in the morning. 14 people. Dad, Mom, Brielle, Aunt Colleen, Uncle Roy, cousins Kevin and Tyler, 2 of Mom's sisters, and a handful of family members I see at Thanksgiving and funerals. Gerald's opening message was simple. "Our family is going through a difficult time. Paige has chosen to involve lawyers instead of working things out as a family. We're asking her to reconsider." Then the flood. Aunt Colleen. "Family first, always." Kevin. "Just pay it and move on, Paige. It's what family does." Mom's sister Linda. "I can't believe you'd put your parents through this. Think about what you're doing." Tyler. "This is between you guys, but lawyers make everything worse." Uncle Roy didn't comment. I noticed that. I scrolled through the messages as they came in. 31 texts in 3 hours. Not one person asked me what actually happened. Not one person asked for my side. Not one person said, "Wait, what exactly are the details here?" They'd all gotten Gerald's version. And Gerald's version didn't include forged signatures, stolen social security numbers, or a P.O. box registered under my mother's name. It didn't include a BMW my sister drives that's titled in my name. It didn't include $312,000 in fraudulent debt. In Gerald's version, I was simply a daughter who wouldn't help. I screenshot every message, every single one. Then I muted the thread and put my phone in the drawer. Nora brought me coffee at noon. She looked at my face and didn't ask. She just set the mug on my desk and went back to work. I drank the coffee, I did my job, and I waited. 4 days left. Day 4, Saturday. I was cleaning my apartment at 10 a.m. when someone knocked. I looked through the peephole. Donna Dawson stood in the hallway holding a Pyrex dish with aluminum foil over the top and a grocery bag from Kroger. Her eyes were swollen. She'd driven 2 hours to deliver chicken pot pie. Part of me, the part that's still her daughter, the part that remembers being 6 and watching her roll the dough, wanted to open the door and pretend none of this had happened. That's the part she was counting on. I opened the door. I didn't step aside. I made your favorite, she said. Can we just talk? We can talk right here. She shifted the dish to her other arm. Paige, I came all this way. Mom, did you forge my signature on those loan applications? Her face did something complicated, a flinch that tried to become a smile and failed at both. Your father. Not Dad. You. Did you sign my name? She looked at the Pyrex, then at me, then at the hallway carpet. I had to. Your father said, did you or didn't you? Yes. The word came out like air from a punctured tire. But I did it to keep this family together. You didn't keep this family together, Mom. You broke it. And you broke the law. She stood there holding the chicken pot pie like a shield. Her chin trembled. Everything about her posture begged me to take the dish, invite her in, and let the conversation slide into something softer. That's how it always worked before. She brings food. I forgive. The cycle continues. Go home, Mom. Paige, go home. And tell Dad he has 3 days left. She walked to the elevator without looking back. The chicken pot pie went with her. Day 5, Sunday evening. Gerald called at 8. His voice was different this time. Not angry, not pleading, cold, controlled. The voice he uses when he fires a supplier or tells a contractor they won't be paid for substandard work. Business voice. I want you to listen carefully, he said. If you file that report, I will tell everyone you abandoned your family. I sat on my couch. I didn't interrupt. I'll call your firm. I'll tell them you're emotionally unstable, that you're making false accusations against your own parents because of a personal grudge. I let him go. You'll have no family, no reputation, no one. You'll be the daughter who sent her own mother to prison over a misunderstanding. He said misunderstanding the way someone says accident about something they did on purpose. Are you done? I asked. Are you? I gave you 7 days, Dad. You've used 5 of them threatening me. I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you what happens. Those are the same thing. Silence. Then quieter. I did what I had to do to save this family's business. I almost missed it. He said I did. Not Brielle needed help, or your mother went too far. He said I did what I had to do. First person. Ownership. In 5 days of calls and texts, he hadn't once denied it, but this was the closest he'd come to saying it plainly. You used my name, Dad, my credit, my future, without asking. You weren't using it. That sentence, 5 words, landed harder than anything he'd said all week. I wasn't using it. As if my identity were an empty parking space. As if my financial life were inventory sitting on a shelf, gathering dust, available for anyone who needed it more. 2 days left, I said, and hung up. Day 6, Monday. Nobody called. The group text went silent. No messages from Dad, Mom, or Brielle. No follow-up from Aunt Colleen. My phone sat on the kitchen counter all evening like a device someone had unplugged. I went to work, reviewed 2 client files, ate lunch at my desk, came home, microwaved leftover pasta, and sat in the quiet of my apartment. The silence should have been a relief. It wasn't. It was the silence of someone regrouping. That evening I met Russell at his office. He spread the documents across the conference table in the order they'd be filed. FTC Identity Theft Report, Form 14039. Police report with Columbus PD. Credit freeze applications for Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. FBI IC3 complaint. He walked me through each one. Every box checked, every line completed except the signature. My signature. The real one. Once these are filed, he said, the creditors are legally required to investigate. The fraudulent accounts will be flagged. It'll take time, 12 to 18 months for full credit recovery, but the process works. And my parents? That depends on the FBI. But mail fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud carry serious federal penalties. Your mother admitted to the forgery. Your father effectively confessed to orchestrating it. I nodded. I'd known this since the beginning. Filing meant consequences, real ones, the kind that show up in courtrooms and on records. Day 7, Tuesday morning. I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and signed every document. My hand didn't shake. Russell filed everything electronically before noon. At 4:30 that afternoon, I heard the first engine outside, then a second, a third. I walked to the window. Gerald's truck, Donna's sedan, Colleen's SUV, Uncle Roy's pickup, and Brielle's BMW, the one bought with my stolen identity. They came in convoy. I texted Russell. "They're here." He texted back. "I'm already in the parking lot, headed up." I opened the door before they knocked. Gerald stood at the front of the group, wearing his Sunday jacket over a work shirt, dressed for authority. Donna behind him, clutching her purse with both hands. Brielle to the right, arms crossed, eyes red. Aunt Colleen and Uncle Roy flanked the sides. Kevin and Tyler hovered near the stairwell, like they weren't sure they wanted to be here. 7 people, my entire family, minus the ones too far away to drive. "We came to settle this," Gerald said, "like a family." "You're 7 days too late." He pushed his hands into his jacket pockets. "That's not how this works, Paige. You don't get to set a deadline for your own father." "I didn't set a deadline for my father. I set a deadline for the people who committed fraud under my name." Colleen stepped forward. "Who's that man behind you? You brought a stranger into family business?" Russell stepped to my shoulder. He held out a business card with the kind of calm that comes from doing this hundreds of times. "Russell Kemp, attorney. I specialize in financial fraud and identity theft cases." Gerald's face changed. Not a dramatic shift, just a tightening around the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. He'd expected tears, an argument, a kitchen table negotiation where he set the terms. He hadn't expected a lawyer standing in his daughter's doorway with a card that said fraud in the first line of the job description. "This is a family matter," Gerald said. "It was a family matter," I said. "Then someone made it a federal one." I stepped back and held the door open. "Come in, all of you. There are some things you need to see." They filed into my living room and stood in a loose half circle, nobody sitting. Russell set his briefcase on the coffee table and opened it. I placed the documents on the table one at a time. No rush, no dramatics. In the last 3 years, 4 credit cards, 1 auto loan, and 2 personal loans were opened in my name. Total, $312,000. I never signed any of these. I never applied for any of these. I never received a single statement. I pointed to the USPS record. My mail was redirected to a P.O. box, registered to Donna Dawson. Every billing statement, every late notice, every collection letter, intercepted for 3 years. I pointed to the loan applications. These signatures were forged. Mom admitted it to me 6 days ago. The room was silent except for Donna, who had started crying into her hands. Brielle stared at the floor. Gerald stared at me. Kevin leaned forward to look at the documents but didn't pick them up. Tyler took a half step backward. Uncle Roy reached across the table and picked up one of the loan applications. He held it at arm's length, he's farsighted, and studied the signature line. He looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at Gerald. "Gerald," he said, "this isn't Paige's handwriting." "Roy, stay out of this." "I've known Paige since she was born. I signed her high school graduation card. This..." He tapped the signature line with his index finger. "This isn't her writing." Colleen looked at the document in Roy's hand. Her mouth opened, then closed. She turned to Gerald. "You told us she refused to help Brielle. You didn't say anything about loans under her name." Gerald's jaw tightened. "It was temporary. We were going to pay it back." The room shifted. Not all at once, but enough. Russell spoke for the first time since introducing himself. His voice was level, the same volume, the same pace, as if he were reading a weather forecast. Redirecting someone's mail without authorization is mail fraud. It carries a federal penalty of up to 5 years in prison. Opening financial accounts using another person's identity is identity theft, up to 15 years. Forging signatures on loan applications constitutes bank fraud, up to 30 years. He let the numbers land. "These aren't civil disputes," he continued. "These are federal crimes. Every agency involved treats them accordingly." Colleen's hand went to her throat. She looked at Gerald the way you look at someone you suddenly realize you don't know as well as you thought. "Gerald, you told me this was about Brielle needing help. You said Paige was being selfish." "I was protecting this family." By committing a felony under your daughter's name? Gerald's voice rose for the first time. I built that store from nothing, 32 years. I wasn't going to let it die because, Mr. Dawson, Russell's voice cut through clean. My advice to you at this point is to retain your own legal counsel. Gerald stopped mid-sentence. His mouth stayed open for a beat too long, then closed. Brielle hadn't moved. She stood near the doorway with her arms wrapped around herself, watching the room collapse. She hadn't spoken a single word. Roy stepped away from Gerald's side of the room. He didn't say anything. He just moved. 3 steps to the left, putting distance between himself and his brother-in-law. Colleen noticed. Tyler noticed. Kevin suddenly found the carpet very interesting. The alliance Gerald had assembled outside my door was fracturing, and he could feel it. For the first time in this room, Gerald Dawson was not the one in control. I spoke directly to my father. No anger, no gloating, just the facts, delivered the same way I'd present a finding to a client at work. I gave you 7 days to come to me, tell the truth, and work with my lawyer on a plan to fix this. Instead, you spent those 7 days calling my relatives, building a group text, and threatening to destroy my reputation. I paused. Nobody filled the silence. As of this morning, I have filed an identity theft report with the FTC, a police report with Columbus PD, frozen my credit with all 3 bureaus, and submitted a complaint to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Donna made a sound. A sharp exhale, like she'd been holding her breath for the entire conversation and just ran out of air. Brielle's hand went to her mouth. Kevin looked at Tyler. Colleen closed her eyes. I didn't do this to punish you, I said. I did it because you gave me no other choice. Gerald's face was gray. You'll regret this. No, Dad, you will. Donna stepped forward. I'm your mother. Then you should have protected me. That landed. I watched it land. Donna's knees buckled slightly and Colleen caught her arm. Even Gerald flinched. A micro-expression there and gone, but I saw it. I looked at the room, all 7 of them. People I'd shared holidays with, people who'd watched me graduate, people whose faces I knew better than my own. I'm not destroying this family, I said. You destroyed it 3 years ago when you decided my name was something you could borrow. I'm just refusing to keep paying for the damage. Nobody spoke. Russell closed his briefcase with a quiet click. The sound was louder than anything else in the room. I just told my entire family, to their faces, that I reported them to the FBI. And my hands weren't shaking. I need you to tell me in the comments. Would you have given them the 7 days, or would you have filed immediately? I genuinely want to know. And if this story is hitting close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Now let me tell you what happened next. They left in the order they'd arrived, but slower. Gerald walked out first. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. He walked to his truck with his hands still in his jacket pockets and shut the door without slamming it. Somehow that was worse. If he'd slammed it, there would have been something left to say. Donna was next, leaning on Colleen's arm. She was crying in a way I'd never seen before. Not the performative tears she'd used on the phone, but the real kind, the kind that makes your breathing ugly. Colleen guided her down the hallway without a word to me. Whatever Colleen was feeling, she kept it folded tight. Kevin and Tyler left together, heads down, talking in low voices. Neither said goodbye. Brielle lingered. She stood in my doorway with her car keys in her hand, and for a moment she looked exactly like the little sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Paige, I really didn't know about all of it. You're driving a car bought with my name, Brielle. She opened her mouth, closed it, walked to the elevator. Uncle Roy was last. He stopped in front of me and extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, his eyes steady. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't say he understood. He just nodded once. The kind of nod that means I see what happened here, and I won't pretend I don't. Then he left. I closed the door. Russell was still standing by the coffee table, gathering the documents. You did the right thing, he said. I sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet. The table was clear except for a few paper clips and the ghost of 7 people who used to be my family. I know, I said. That's why it hurts. The legal process doesn't move like television. It's slower, quieter, and mostly paperwork. Russell contacted each creditor within 48 hours of filing. He sent certified letters, the the kind that require a signature upon delivery, containing my FTC identity theft report and a copy of Form 14039, the identity theft affidavit. Each letter formally disputed the accounts, requested an investigation, and demanded documentation of the original applications. The responses trickled in over the next 2 weeks. The first credit card company confirmed that the signature on file didn't match my official signature with the Ohio BMV. They flagged the account as fraudulent and suspended collection activity. 3 days later, a second card issuer followed. The auto lender, the one that financed the BMW, opened an internal review. Their compliance team discovered that the loan application listed an employment history and income level that didn't match any publicly verifiable records. Someone had fabricated job details to qualify for the loan, the same someone who had forged my signature. The two personal loan companies were slower but moved in the same direction. Online lenders have looser verification, which is how the fraud went undetected in the first place. Once Russell submitted the FTC report and the USPS forwarding evidence, both flagged the accounts for dispute and paused all collection. Each investigation was a small machine grinding forward, comparing signatures, checking addresses, verifying employment, tracing where the money went. None of it was dramatic. All of it was necessary. I went to work every day. I reviewed other people's financial records while mine were being untangled. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could audit a corporation's books down to the penny, but I'd miss $300,000 of fraud under my own name because I'd never once treated my family like a client. That blind spot cost me 3 years. The FBI field office in Athens, Ohio contacted Gerald and Donna 6 weeks after I filed the IC3 complaint. Russell told me about it over the phone, measured as always. They've been asked to appear for voluntary interviews, separately. That's standard procedure. They want to compare statements. Gerald hired his own attorney, a general practice lawyer from Millfield who handled property disputes and DUI cases. Not someone equipped for federal fraud allegations, but Gerald Dawson doesn't trust outsiders, and he doesn't drive to Columbus for anything. The attorney's retainer came from the store's operating account, the same store that was already losing money, the same store that Gerald had tried to save by stealing my identity in the first place. Now the store was funding his legal defense against the consequences of that decision. The circle was tightening. Donna was summoned separately. She retained a different attorney, her sister Linda's recommendation, a woman from Lancaster who specialized in white-collar defense. That fee came from Donna's personal savings, which I later learned was almost depleted. 3 years of covering Brielle's shortfalls had drained it. Brielle was contacted too. Not for interview, not yet. But the FBI requested documentation related to the BMW. Registration, insurance records, proof of payment. The car was titled in my name, insured using my social security number, and had never been driven by me. Brielle's attorney, yes, she'd retained one by now too, advised her to cooperate fully. 3 lawyers, 3 retainer fees, 3 members of my family spending money. They didn't have to defend actions they swore were done out of love. Russell gave me updates every few days, short and factual. I didn't call my family. They didn't call me. The silence between us was no longer the silence of regrouping. It was the silence of people who'd run out of ways to rewrite the story. 3 months after filing, the first real numbers came in. 3 of the 4 fraudulent credit cards had been closed and the balances removed from my credit report. The issuers had completed their investigations and confirmed identity theft. Those accounts, $67,000 in charges I never made, ceased to exist on paper. The auto loan was still under dispute. The lender's compliance team had confirmed the forged application, but the physical asset, the BMW X3, complicated things. Someone was driving it. Someone had it insured. The car either needed to be returned to the lender or refinanced under the actual driver's name. Brielle's attorney was negotiating, but Brielle's credit couldn't support a $45,000 loan on a boutique manager's part-time salary. The 2 personal loans were in active dispute. Both online lenders had frozen collection activity and opened fraud investigations. Russell expected resolution within 60 days. The store credit line, $22,000 at a furnishing company, had already been flagged and removed. That one was easy. The company had no signature on file at all, just an online application with my social security number. Total fraudulent debt removed so far, 89,000. Remaining in dispute, 223,000. My credit score had crept from 480 to 582. Not good, but moving. Russell summarized it on a Tuesday afternoon call. Full recovery is 12 to 18 months. Some accounts will fight harder than others, but the trajectory is clear. You're getting your name back. Getting my name back. A strange phrase for something that should never have been taken. I checked the Westerville real estate listing that night. The house with the blue shutters and the maple tree was still on the market. The price had dropped $8,000. I bookmarked it again. This time I had reason to. The investigation into Gerald moved faster than anyone expected. When the FBI reviewed the financial records from Dawson & Sons Hardware, they found what Russell had suspected but hadn't yet confirmed. Gerald hadn't just used my identity to fund Brielle's business. He'd funneled a portion of the loan proceeds through the store's operating account to cover his own shortfalls. Rent, payroll, supplier invoices. The store had been hemorrhaging money for years, and my stolen credit was the IV drip keeping it alive. The FBI flagged it as money laundering adjacent, not full-scale laundering, but a commingling of fraudulently obtained funds with legitimate business accounts. Gerald's Millfield attorney was in over his head and referred him to a criminal defense specialist in Columbus. That attorney's retainer was $15,000. Gerald took it from the store's emergency fund. The charges Gerald faced were serious. Mail fraud, up to 20 years per count. Aggravated identity theft, a mandatory 2-year consecutive sentence. Bank fraud, up to 30 years. His defense attorney recommended negotiating a plea deal before formal charges were filed. Gerald refused. "I'm not pleading guilty to anything," he told his lawyer, according to what Russell heard through the legal grapevine. But Gerald's leverage was evaporating. The store's books were now under federal review. His Millfield attorney had documented conversations with the FBI that contradicted Gerald's version of events. And his own wife had already admitted, on record in her separate interview, that Gerald had directed her to forge the documents. For the first time in Gerald Dawson's life, he couldn't control the outcome. He couldn't renegotiate the terms. He couldn't walk into a room and set the price. The price was being set for him now, and he couldn't afford it. Donna's FBI interview lasted 4 hours. I wasn't there, but Russell obtained a summary through the discovery process. She'd been cooperative. Her attorney had advised full transparency from the start, and for once, Donna listened to someone other than Gerald. She confirmed everything. The P.O. box, the mail forwarding, the forged signatures. She told the agents she'd used my proxy authorization form to practice my handwriting. She said Gerald had approached her with the idea 3 years ago, after the store posted its 3rd consecutive year of losses, and Brielle's boutique ran through its initial capital. He said it would be 1 loan, she told the investigators. Then 1 became 2. Then there were credit cards. I kept telling myself we'd pay it back before Paige ever knew. Her attorney negotiated based on cooperation. Donna hadn't orchestrated the scheme. She'd executed it under Gerald's direction. The distinction mattered legally, if not morally. The U.S. Attorney's Office agreed to recommend reduced charges in exchange for her continued testimony. A week after the interview, Donna sent me a letter, handwritten, on the same stationery she uses for birthday cards. I recognized the handwriting instantly, the same hand that had written "Happy Birthday, Sweetheart" and Paige Dawson on a $70,000 loan application. "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I was wrong. Your father told me it would be okay, and I believed him because it was easier than saying no. I'm starting therapy next week. I should have started years ago." I read the letter twice. I folded it and put it in the filing cabinet where I keep documents that matter. I didn't write back, not because I didn't care, because I wasn't ready to separate the mother who was sorry from the mother who had signed my name. They were the same person. That was the hardest part. Brielle returned the BMW on a Tuesday in November. She couldn't refinance. Her credit score, her real one, under her actual name, was 510, wrecked by the boutique's unpaid vendors and a string of missed rent payments her parents had quietly covered until the money ran out. No lender would touch her for a $45,000 auto loan. The dealership that had originated the financing sent a driver to pick up the car. Brielle handed over the keys in the parking lot of her apartment in Athens. I know this because Russell's office received the confirmation of voluntary surrender. I tried to picture it. Brielle standing in a parking lot watching someone drive away in a car she'd used for 2 years. A car that was never hers. Bought with a name that wasn't hers to use. I wondered if she felt what I felt when I saw my credit report for the first time, or if it was a different kind of loss entirely. The boutique closed the following week. Not with a dramatic announcement or a going out of business sale, just a quiet shutdown. The Instagram page went dark. The website returned a 404 error. The inventory, whatever remained, was liquidated through a consignment shop in Athens for pennies on the dollar. Brielle got a part-time job at a home goods store. $19 an hour, 30 hours a week. For the first time in her adult life, she was paying her own rent with her own income. She didn't call me. I didn't call her. The distance between us wasn't anger. Not anymore. It was something heavier and more honest. We were two people standing on opposite sides of a line that our parents had drawn, and neither of us knew how to step across it without pretending the line didn't exist. The extended family reorganized itself the way families do after a fracture, slowly, silently, and without anyone admitting it was happening. Colleen went quiet. She didn't call me, but she stopped calling on Gerald's behalf too. At Thanksgiving, which I didn't attend, she reportedly sat at the opposite end of the table from Gerald and spoke mostly to Roy. She never apologized to me for the things she'd said. I didn't expect her to. Colleen processes information at her own pace, and sometimes that pace is measured in seasons. Kevin, the cousin who'd texted "just pay it and move on," never mentioned it again. Not to me, not in the group text, which had gone silent. He sent me a generic Merry Christmas message in December. I sent one back. We left it at that. Roy called me in January. Brief, direct, Roy's style. "I should have asked you what happened before I showed up at your door," he said. "I'm sorry." "Thank you, Uncle Roy." "Your grandmother, my mother, she would have done exactly what you did." That sentence sat with me for days. "Gerald's my brother-in-law," Roy added, "but what he did was wrong. I want you to know I see that." "I appreciate it. You need anything, you call me." He meant it. Roy doesn't say things he doesn't mean. After we hung up, he became the one relative I kept in regular contact with. A phone call every few weeks, brief and warm, never about the case, always about ordinary things. Weather, baseball, the price of lumber. The family didn't collapse the way Gerald had warned. It rearranged. Some ties loosened. Others, like the one with Roy, became stronger. The people who wanted the truth found it. The people who didn't looked away. That's how families actually work. 8 months after I filed, my credit score hit 710. Russell called with the number on a Thursday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing a client's quarterly report, and I had to set my pen down because my hand was shaking. The first time it had shaken through any of this. 710. Not perfect, not where I'd been before the fraud, but enough. That Friday, I called the mortgage company. The loan officer, a different one this time, reviewed my application, my income, my corrected credit profile. She called back Monday. Approved. I signed the papers on a Wednesday morning in a title company office in Westerville. The loan documents were thick, 40-something pages of terms, disclosures, and commitment letters. I read every line. I initialed every page, and when I reached the final signature line, I paused. The last time someone had signed my name on a financial document, it was my mother, in a kitchen in Millfield, forging a life I never authorized. This time, the hand was mine. The choice was mine. The house was mine. Paige Dawson. My handwriting. My name. Nora helped me move on a Saturday. She brought coffee, a dolly she'd borrowed from her building's maintenance closet, and a playlist that was aggressively upbeat. We carried boxes up the front steps of a 2-bedroom house with white siding, blue shutters, and a maple tree in the backyard that was just starting to turn gold. I hung the house key on a hook by the front door. A small thing, a brass hook from a hardware store, not Dawson's. But every time I walked in and saw it hanging there, it meant the same thing. This is my house, under my name, paid for with my money, signed in my hand, nobody else's. I froze my credit permanently with all 3 bureaus. Every time I need to open a new account or apply for anything, I authorize a temporary lift myself. A PIN, a phone call, a verification code. It adds 5 minutes to every transaction. I've never once resented those 5 minutes. I changed every password, every security question, every mailing address tied to any account I've ever opened. Two-factor authentication on everything. A separate P.O. box in Columbus, mine, in my name, that only I have the key to. These are the walls I built where walls should have always been. With Gerald, the boundary is simple. No contact until the legal process concludes. His plea negotiations are ongoing. His attorney sends updates to Russell. I don't need to hear Gerald's voice to know what's happening. The paperwork tells me everything. With Donna, I agreed to written correspondence only. Letters, not phone calls. She writes monthly. Short, careful letters that read like someone learning a new language. The language of accountability. Her therapist's influence is visible in the phrasing. I read every letter. I haven't written back yet. I might eventually. The door isn't locked. It's just not open. With Brielle, nothing. No contact from either side. I don't know what she's doing beyond the basics Russell relays through the legal process. Maybe one day we'll talk. Maybe we won't. I can't rebuild a relationship with someone who hasn't yet told me the truth about what she knew and when. Uncle Roy calls every other Sunday. We talk about small things. He never brings up Gerald unless I do, and I almost never do. I didn't lose my family. I lost the version of my family that never existed. The one where everyone told the truth and nobody used my name without asking. The real version is smaller. But it's honest. It's a Sunday morning. I'm sitting on the front step of my house in Westerville with a cup of coffee that's still too hot to drink. The maple tree is bare. It's February, and the branches look like cracks in a gray sky. In the spring, the leaves will come back. In the fall, they'll turn gold again. The tree doesn't rush it. I think about what my father said the night this started. Family takes care of family. He meant it as an obligation, a debt I owed simply by existing in the same bloodline. But he got the direction wrong. Taking care of family means protecting the people you love, not using them as collateral. It means telling the truth even when the truth is expensive. It means never signing someone else's name on a document they've never seen. If someone you love is hurting you financially, it's still a crime. If they tell you it was done out of love, that doesn't change the statute. If they tell you reporting it makes you a bad daughter, a bad son, a bad sibling, they're confusing loyalty with silence, and silence is what makes it possible. Setting a boundary isn't revenge. It's the first honest thing you can do for yourself. I didn't win anything. I didn't gain wealth or status or vindication. I got my name back. I got a credit score that reflects who I actually am. I got a house that's mine. And I got the knowledge that I can sit on this step, drink this coffee, and not owe a single dollar to anyone for something I didn't do. The street is quiet. No one is knocking on my door. No one is asking me to pay for someone else's choices. It's February. The coffee's finally cool enough to drink. I take a sip. It's good. That's my story. And I know some of you are sitting with your own version of it right now. Maybe not $300,000, maybe not the FBI, but the same feeling. The feeling of finding out that the people who were supposed to have your back were the ones reaching into your pocket. If this video made you feel something, drop a comment and tell me. Did you set the boundary, or are you still thinking about it? No judgment either way. I've been on both sides of that decision. If you want to hear more stories like this one, check the description. I've got 2 more that hit just as hard. Hit subscribe so you're here for the next one. And remember, your name belongs to you. Nobody gets to borrow it without asking.